we can compound interest in other time periods than annually. In our previous example, we had a 1-year time frame starting at time 0 and moving to time period 1. We had a 10% annual interest rate. But if we think of this in terms of bonds, we can cut the time period in 0, as bonds typically pay interest every 6 months. So if our 10% is our annual rate, if we cut that in half by dividing by 2, we find that there's a 5% payment due after the first 6 months and 5% at the end of the second 6 months. Bonds are typically $1,000 per bond, and a 10% interest rate would be $1,000 per year, but 5% is due at the end of the first 6 months. So that's a $50 payment at the end of the first 6 months, a $50 payment at the end of the second 6 months for our 10% or total of $100 return. And of course, we get our $1,000 back for the bond at the end of the year. Now, the reason this is so important is because this $50 that you get at the first 6 months can be invested and compounded forward for the rest of the year. So while you only get the 10% in simple interest from the bond, you can invest the $50 at 6-month period so it compounds forward. We don't need to necessarily compound every 6 months. That's just an example of the bond. We could compound quarterly, or we could compound monthly, or what you typically see in bank accounts is compounded daily. When you hear the word compounded daily, it means that the interest you earned yesterday is earning you interest on it today. So instead of 12 time periods, we have a bunch of time periods. We simply take 10% divided by 365, which equals 0.0274% per day. So it's not very much interest per day, but it's 10% annual. But the interest that you got paid yesterday is making you money today. This is typically how banks handle compounding the interest. Now, the interest could be compounded more than that, but daily is probably enough for us to discuss the situation. They do have continuous compounding, where the interest immediately starts getting you more interest even though the day hasn't occurred. You could do it by minute if you wanted to. But compounded daily is very important, because the $50 that we earned with the bond over the next 6 months is only earning us interest over that time period. If we go daily, the numbers would be higher. In future lessons, we'll talk about examples of that.